Hi everyone, it's Raina. So this video is if your natal Chiron is in the second house and or is in the sign of Taurus. If it's in both, it's like, oh wow, it's double the pleasure, if you want to call it pleasure. Chiron is the wound that needs healing in this lifetime, and Taurus rules the second house of earned income, hence the connection between why I'm including Chiron and Taurus as well, because both of these can have similar manifestations. So, because the second house is connected to material resources, including the money that you earn, but just like your possessions and things like that, Chiron here can be an actual lack of those material resources. Now, typically, what we're talking about is growing up, and so that sets the stage for something. I'm not talking about somebody who has a middle class childhood and then they have a financial downturn when they're older. This is going to be typically something that occurs from the time you're young. And that in itself can create that wound where you feel as if it can be, your resources can be taken from you at any moment. And so what can result is that the person becomes much more possessive over their money and their possessions. And they can also end up being quite they can be overly cautious when, because they have a fear of not having enough. And, I'm sure everybody has somebody in their life who has irrational fear around material resources, who has more money than they know what to do with, but they refuse to spend it. We call these people, when it's really at the extreme, we call them misers. We're not talking about people who are just making it paycheck to paycheck. I'm talking about people who don't have that excuse. So that can create that kind of fear-based mentality. And you could say, well, what's the big deal? So you save money. That's a good thing. But why I think that really goes against life itself is, first of all, there is negative energy attached to the situation. So there's a negative attachment that forms. It's one thing to value your resources and be proactive, and by honoring them, you're not squandering your resources. But at the same time, being able to enjoy them, because after all, if you're investing time into something, you want to be able to see the result of it in some kind of tangible form. And when you can't do that, and especially if you are an earth sign, you have that desire to really have the proof of what you've worked so hard for. And those people who are earth signs and have Chiron in the second house, it can really affect them where they feel like, oh wow, I didn't I don't really have anything to show for it, to celebrate, all of my accomplishments that have led to my prosperity. And so in other words, I think it becomes kind of a trap where people think that they're doing it to be safe, but they end up um, being so caught up in their fear that they never get a chance to enjoy what they have worked so hard for. And another thing that can happen too is that the person's very materialistic. And this can lead to, that excessive quality can lead to somebody who is possessed by their possessions. Another thing that I didn't see on the list that I compiled with the assistance of jessicadavidson.co.uk is anything about having to work long hours and things like that. That's one of the big things about materialism. Henry David Thoreau, who was an American philosopher, essayist, who wrote on, I was going to say on Golden Pond, Walden Pond, um, wrong pond, uh, he had an essay that I went back to college when I was in my 30s, and I had a wonderful professor who assigned us this essay, and I can't remember the name of it, but he, at the end of it, Thoreau said, simplify, simplify, simplify. I remember that part. But it was all about how much work it takes to earn, certain things, whether it's your shoes or something like that. And I had never heard anybody really talk about it that way. Or maybe in some cases, right around that time, because this was in the 90s, there was a movement called voluntary simplicity. Now, that probably has morphed into the minimalist movement. They're always rebranding things. So it's really fascinating to me, all of these, belief systems, because I think there's a lot of truth in them. When you consider our very consumer-oriented society and how people get sucked into, constant spending for things that they soon lose interest in, and it takes so much valuable time from their life. What kind of life would they be leading if they didn't have all these bills to pay? And so the Chiron in the second house can indicate that the person's wound is in this false belief that somehow they're going to be happy by having all these things. And again, I think that is definitely coming from childhood, either being deprived of, affection, or not having material resources that one wanted. I think all of those things can contribute to this type of excessive preoccupation with material objects. And then, the other thing too, and this is what Taurus is known for, is treating others in a possessive manner. Typically, it will be the person's spouse or, relationship, but it can be in any kind of relationship, like a friendship or anything where the person feels like they have the right to that person's time, that person's exclusive affection. Like, sometimes with friendships, a friend can get jealous of another friend if they're going out by themselves to dinner, and like, why aren't you including me? Like, always having to, be included, and thinking that they have some right to another person. Yeah, that can happen in that sense too. And it really does affect a person negatively, because they may lose friends over such an attitude. This can be connected to the body, the person's own body. The person may feel like they can't count on their body. Their body is unreliable in some way. So maybe they have fluctuations in health, and sometimes they're not able to work, or sometimes they, these are like the I realize they didn't say that, but this is like maybe the first and second chakra. Maybe the third chakra too. Money is connected to the third chakra, but when I'm talking about the first chakra is security and, meeting your basic needs. But I'm pretty sure the body would be part of the first chakra. The second chakra, the second house, now I'm going to get confused by talking about it like that. The second house is also about one's value system. And it may be hard for such people to find a value system that works for them. And sometimes I notice, and I don't think that this is really, I think that this is true, is that some people just, it almost seems like they're amoral. And that allows them, especially if they're very greedy, it allows them to do some things that other people would say, how can these people live with themselves? What they have done, how can they look themselves in the mirror? If they have exploited people for money, for profit, it's like, usually a value system, whether it's religious or just like a humanism type of system, where the person just believes that there are certain things that are part of the ethical framework of participating in life as a human being, and some of these people are totally discarding that. So, like I said, Chiron and Taurus can have similar themes. And so another thing too is trouble realizing your creative talents. You may have these talents. You may have utilized them when you're a child by simply drawing a lot. And people might have been impressed with your, let's say, drawing. It doesn't have to be that. It could be singing. It could be anything. But you can't find a way to make these creative talents, bring them out into the world. Now, going back to the issue of possession, some people may react the other way, and you could even call it overreact, where they are so against any possibility of being possessed by possessions that they check out of that system in some way. And I mean, that's how I took what they said. So that can still manifest as somebody who is maybe living in a, like, let's say the communal lifestyle. And I remember reading this book, and it's out of print now, but it was fascinating, on the Back to the Land movement of the early 70s, late 60s, early 70s, and the communes that sprouted up from that movement. And this man who was like a print journalist went around to visit some of the ones that were, more widely known and populated. And he found that a lot of these people that were like dropping out of society so they could be part of this commune, they were still shirking their responsibilities even within the group. So it wasn't that they were just breaking free from some kind of oppressive system. They didn't want to even have any kind of system. And that can certainly lead, especially if the commune is relying on its members to keep things together, that can be problematic. But on top of that, this writer reported that some of these people were on food stamps, or they were getting some kind of welfare, and because they were living together, it was like they could all just kind of pool their resources, their food stamps, and it made it much easier to not work because they had this backup. But the thing that was confusing is that these are the same people who put down the system. But they still needed to eat, didn't they? This can just in general be at risk of getting bogged down with material nature. So the person is too earthbound, and that makes them, I would think, have a hard time with anything that's not tangible. And so it's hard to take comfort in any kind of spiritual belief system because they don't even have a value system to begin with. And I would even dare say that this might indicate the atheist who has no faith in something that is invisible to them. And the writer of these articles suggests, she always talks about the gift. And she does it with Chiron in the signs. I don't know why she doesn't do it with Chiron in the different houses. But in any case, since it's similar, she talks about listening to your body so that you can really, gain insight into your instincts and you can really trust it. And also, she talks about finding that inner security. And, self-worth is connected to the second house, net worth and self-worth. And about having like some kind of a spiritual guidance system so that a person can do something, that they're always able to fall back on a higher belief. And then, so there's no risk of getting bogged down in the minutia of the world and, how it can snag us. You could be great at handling other people's money. And she also mentions being a midwife to creativity, which I think is an interesting phrase. Not quite sure why the second house, maybe just because it's Taurus, I'm not sure. Oh no, I think it's the midwife is because you're the healer, and because this can be about creativity, you could be helping others to realize their creativity, and then that helps you. Okay, well, that's what I have for you. I hope that resonated. And if you would like a private reading, the link is below. Thanks for listening. Take care. Bye.